Today's show is sponsored by the Electric Vehicle Association. Join up to support the electrification of transport today. And by Energy Sage. Time's running out in the US to get the benefit of federal tax incentives, so plan your energy independence today. And by you. Stick around to find out how you can help us remain 100% independent by joining us on Patreon this autumn. Welcome back to another episode of TEN Transport Evolved News. Thanks for joining me. It is a live show today. I am somewhere in Central California at this lovely Electrify America charging station that not only has a bank of very high-powered charging stations, but also has a full bifacial solar array on the roof and a lovely, nice, cool area for us to stand while filming. As you may or may not know, we are currently on our way back from LA, where we attended the launch of the 2027 Chevrolet Bolt EV, and that's going to be our first story of today. Now, obviously, unlike all of our usual 10 shows that are heavily scripted, it takes basically 3 days to make that video. This is going to be completely unscripted. We're not going to get through the 50 to 60 stories that we normally cover. We're not going to go through the recall reminders. That is what we normally do in the studio. But today it's low key, it's a little bit informal, and it's just talking about some of the big stories that have hit the news this week. So let's start with the new 2027 Chevrolet Bolt EV. It was unveiled yesterday at a special event in LA. Now, I've already had a couple of people reach out and ask me why it was unveiled in someone's driveway. One person was confused because it looked like it was just a block party in just a neighborhood somewhere in Southern California. And yes, that's true. It was a block party in Southern California, but it actually took place on a film set because we were at the backlot at Universal Studios. So all of those houses that we were walking around and that you saw people milling around, they're all used for filming stuff at Universal. So it's not an actual street in the real world. It was just a movie set. And I think GM decided to hold the event there because it wanted to reinforce the everyday appeal of the Chevrolet Bolt EV. And the message that we got yesterday was that GM had heard everybody's requests to keep making the Bolt and had decided to bring the Bolt back. Now, we've got a whole new video that we're going to be dropping early next week on the Bolt, so I don't want to repeat what I say in that here. But here are some of the really important things. First off, the starting price is going to be under $30,000 US for the launch edition, and under, I think it's $28,995 for the LT trim variant. The top trim variant is going to be the RS, and that's the one that's going to be available at launch for just under $30,000 US. Externally, it looks identical to the old 2022-23 Chevrolet Bolt EUV, and that's because for the new 2027 model year, Chevrolet has kept all of the metalwork and body panels from the Bolt EUV. The Bolt EUV has essentially become the new Bolt EV, but underneath, everything has changed. And I do mean everything. The motor is out of the Chevrolet Equinox EV. There's a brand new 65 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery pack. The car, instead of having CCS, which is what this Bolt here has, it has NACS. It has 150 kilowatt charging. GM says an EPA range of 255 miles. Inside the dashboard, it looks very familiar to the rest of GM's EV lineup. That means Android Automotive, no Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto, which is going to be a problem for a lot of people. But the inside is built to be customizable. There's an open area above the glove box on the passenger side. The center cup holder area is customizable, so you can fit different sized cups in. And while I was given a chance to drive the car, it was very slow around a closed course within the Universal backlot. So I couldn't tell you honestly how it would handle on the open road, but from a very quick cursory look, it seemed really good. So keep your eyes peeled, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we will be covering that more in future weeks. Now, I'm going to pick up my laptop here because obviously I've been on the road all week. We left on Monday. We traveled Monday and Tuesday down. We're actually making a video about traveling all the way down to LA and back in this Bolt. This is my wife's 2017 Bolt EV. That's going to be coming on the channel soon as well. So I'm afraid I'm not doing my usual kind of extensive research on the channel, but I am going to talk about some of the big news stories that came out this week. One of them that was kind of interesting to me was Toyota is expanding its solid-state battery partnership with Sumitomo in Japan. Now, Toyota has been really hammering on solid-state batteries. It says it's going to produce its first fully solid-state battery pack for use in EVs in 2028. And whether it will achieve that or not, I couldn't say. But for a company that has spent so many years bashing EVs and saying horrible and mean and nasty things about it, Toyota seems very hell-bent on leading a solid-state battery. So take from that what you will. I'm editorializing right now, of course, but I think that Toyota missed the boat with previous generation battery tech, and it doesn't want to do it again for this one. And I find that very, very interesting indeed. The next story that obviously we should mention is Aptera is readying to go public, and there's been several articles this week from various different sites talking about what that means for Aptera. And some people are hinting, without any kind of insider knowledge, that it could be a bad thing for Aptera. Now, I am someone who has a deposit down on an Aptera. I couldn't tell you whether I will see that car or not, but I think we should be very complimentary about the fact that Aptera did not go through a reverse merger. It didn't make use of a special purpose acquisition company or a SPAC to go public. It actually had to do the legwork and go through a more arduous, lengthy process to be approved for listing on the NASDAQ. And I think while some people are saying this is bad news for Aptera, I think actually it does point to the fact that the company must be doing well enough to meet all of those requirements to be listed. Now, we don't know yet whether it's been approved for listing on the NASDAQ. We will find out more in the coming days. Next up, I want to talk to you about the fact that Kia has just announced a new battery test program with a very well-known battery specialist through a company in the UK called Dukosi. And they're going to be doing a battery passport, a digital battery passport for a prototype battery pack in a Kia EV that allows Kia to really very carefully manage every cell's state of health and monitor the state of health and manage its state of charge at a much more granular level than most automotive battery management systems. And the hope is that by getting more data from the battery in the real world, and then by utilizing a whole bunch of advanced modeling techniques, that Kia and Dukosi together can actually better predict an EV's battery health. If you can better predict a battery's health, you can highlight problems before they become problems, but you can also make sure that long term the battery can actually use more of its potential storage capacity. Because if you are more confident of how the battery is and how its health is, you can leverage more of its potential capacity, which means maybe improvements in range, maybe improvements in power delivery. And I think that's a really exciting piece of news for the industry. Next up, a story that I noticed midweek that caught my attention, and that is that Zero Motorcycles, the electric motorcycle company from not too far away here in California, they're actually based south of San Francisco Bay in Scotts Valley. They are they're done with the US and they're moving their headquarters to the Netherlands. Now, I can't say I'm surprised. Zero Motorcycles has always had a kind of a Tesla air about it. And I know lots of people who ride Zeros who complain bitterly about the company's attitude to existing owners. And I also know people who say really wonderful things about the service folks at Zero. It does seem to be dependent on where you live and what your local dealership is like. They do have specialists, but a lot of Zeros are sold through, you know, franchised motorcycle dealerships. But Zero's come to the conclusion that the electric motorcycle market in the US is not taking off the way they want it to. And it's really, really exploding in Europe in a good way. There are more and more people wanting to ride electric motorcycles. It helps reduce their commute time. Obviously, many European countries have filtering laws that allow motorcycles to overtake or weave through traffic in a way that most places in the US don't. Obviously, here in California, where I am right now, lane splitting is legal in certain situations, but that's not true in my home state of Oregon. And so Zero is moving all of their research and development and headquarters from the US to the Netherlands, which frankly, while I have been put off owning a Zero by several people I know with Zeros who had issues with maintenance and service and not great after sales support, I think it's a good move for Zero because I think it will allow it to capitalize on the enthusiasm in the marketplace in Europe for electric two-wheelers. So good on you. Good on you. Next up, I want to talk to you about the Mercedes-Benz ELF. And no, I'm not talking about a cute little chap from the 1970s. Was ELF? Well, it was ALF, wasn't it? It was ALF, not ELF. This is what happens when my ADHD brain is off script. Anyway, the Mercedes-Benz ELF has been debuted this week. What is it? It's a one-off concept that Mercedes-Benz wants to use to preview a future where you can get a mobile gas tank for your EV. So let me explain this. One of the big blockers to EV adoption for many people is the fear that they won't be able to turn up at one of these charging stations in time and get back on the road. And if you run out of charge, you might require a tow, or you might be able to beg an emergency charge from someone if you have a portable charging cable. But what ELF is it's a Mercedes-Benz e-Vito, I believe, or possibly it's V-Class electric, that has inside it a bunch of batteries and high-power charging cables and equipment. It has multiple power outlets or multiple charge cables on it, and it can support not only high power as in 350 kilowatt style fast charging, but it can actually support up to 1 megawatt of fast charging, which means it could be used to help big rigs that have got stuck at the side of the road because they've run out of charge, or it could be used to rescue new Mercedes-Benz owners who haven't fully understood yet the whole energy management thing. And it's being called ELF. I suspect it's electric something something. Oh no, it comes from the according to Electrek here, it comes from the experimental Ladefahrzeug, which is the experimental charge vehicle, basically, if my German is not very good. I know what Laden is in Germany because I had to read manuals for my EV. My old City L and also my City Stroma. A lot of the literature for both of those vehicles was in German, and that was before Google Translate, boys and girls. So that's a very cool little idea, and I'm quite enamored with that. I think it's a very cool thing. Apologies for the jump cut there. I just had a coughing fit because I'm outside and the air quality here is not the best. And I've been talking for about 16 minutes now. So other cool stories that caught my attention this week. The IONIQ9 has been spotted wearing camouflage. The IONIQ9 is only, what, a year and a bit old now, but they're already looking at building a new exterior for that vehicle. And so there are spy shots floating around for that. Why do I mention it? Well, you might have seen a spy shot video on our channel earlier this week, which has nothing to do with EVs. We were driving up the Grapevine, which is the nickname given to the stretch of I-5 as you come out of LA and come up over the mountains and head north. We passed a Kia, what we think was next year's Kia Telluride, doing towing testing. So it was fully camouflaged and it was towing a trailer with calibrated weights in the back, and that's what automakers do to check the vehicle's handling and make sure it can actually tow the weights that they want it to be capable of towing. So it was driving pretty slowly, I would say, up the Grapevine. But you know, I think the fact that that Hyundai is working on a new, it's being marketed as an off-road variant. So think like the I think it's called the XRT. Kind of, it's not actually off-road, it's just off-road vibes. Think a Subaru-ified IONIQ9 and you'll be in the right direction. Or think of the IONIQ 5 XRT, because that's the same thing. And that's going to mean probably a bit of a suspension lift. You're probably going to get some widened wheel arches, maybe a few trim tweaks at the front and the end to make it look a bit more aggressive. I have no idea as to pricing. I have no idea as to availability. But I think, you know, it speaks very well to the fact that automakers are really pushing vehicles these days that create the impression that they are off-road ready and they are off-road capable, even if they're not designed specifically for that purpose. And I think that speaks to us, to society, and how we all want to have this vehicle that can go everywhere and do anything and be anything, when really what most of us need is a compact hatchback to get to and from work. So it's kind of that buyer desire versus what the buyer actually really needs. We're going to have some more stories in a moment, but first, a word from one of today's video sponsors, Energy Sage. Energy Sage connects you with local verified solar installers across the US and now heat pump specialists in select markets who really know their stuff and can help guide you through the process of installing solar panels or getting a heat pump installed. Not a homeowner? No worries. Energy Sage can still help you green your electricity by joining a community solar program. We personally used Energy Sage ourselves when we were looking for installers willing to put solar panels on the roof of our home, and their verified pros were knowledgeable and even introduced us to a great credit union that allowed us to finance our panels for as low a monthly payment as possible. As we have been saying for months now, incentives for solar, including savings of as much as 30% through the federal tax credit program, will disappear in less than 3 months' time. Unfortunately, solar projects take time, so if you want to lock in those savings, it's important for you to act now because you don't have time to dawdle anymore. Follow the links below to sign up for Energy Sage's free, no obligation service and get started today. And if you choose to use an Energy Sage installer, we'll also receive a small referral fee, so you'll be helping us too. Help the grid get greener, save money, gain energy independence, and support the channel. It's a win-win-win-win. And now we would normally turn to our recall reminders and our news shorts. We're not going to have those today. We're just going to go through a few more stories here that's worth mentioning. So for a long time now, we've been watching the ups and downs of Renault's subsidiary Ampere, which was jointly invested in by Renault and Nissan, and I think Mitsubishi had a bit of money in it as well. It's now basically just Renault. And this week, that subsidiary, Ampere, opened up a new innovation laboratory to allow it to focus on new battery cell development. And this is something that's happening across the EV industry. Automakers are looking to try and build in-house, to bring battery cell development in-house, because that gives them access to IP, that gives them access to more information, and it allows them to lock down their technical developments. A lot of them are doing battery innovation in-house and then licensing out their battery cells to other manufacturers. So it's a really interesting move. But I think it's going to be very important for Europe, because in Europe they have a real drive right now to secure EV battery materials, resources and IP within the European Union, because of everything that's going on in the US, because of everything that's going on elsewhere in the world. Another thing that's grabbed my attention this week is, where has it gone? Right, yeah. So the German government coalition has agreed on new EV subsidies for low and middle income families. Now, this is kind of important because Germany has dragged its feet for quite some time on subsidies. In recent years, we've seen more subsidy programs. We've seen subsidy programs come and go. But as we've seen in France and other neighboring nations across Europe, when EV subsidies are increased for low-income families, you do see a dramatic increase in the number of people getting behind the wheel of an EV. Of course, the gold standard here is to incentivize automakers to make EVs cheaper, rather than to just increase subsidies. Because if you increase subsidies, automakers view that as a carte blanche to just make EVs more expensive. And as we've seen, literally in the last 2 weeks here in the US, when you remove those tax credits, automakers are suddenly making EVs cheaper. Which brings me to an interesting story from General Motors. So in last week's show, I told you that General Motors and Ford had come up with a clever, sneaky way, this one trick to secure deposits on EVs that were in inventory at dealerships at the end of September, before the end of September. These finance arms of both Ford and General Motors went to their respective dealerships and put down deposits on all EVs that were in inventory at the time, because under a particular carve-out for the tax credit program, which has now ended, if you had put a deposit down on a vehicle before the end of October, you were still eligible to claim that full federal tax incentive, I think if you were leasing and if you were buying in certain situations. Ford is still going to do that as far as I know, but this week GM turned around and went, yeah, we've actually changed our mind. We're not going to be doing that anymore. And I think what it boils down to is that a politician on Capitol Hill threatened to end that loophole and end it immediately, or do nasty, mean and horrible things to anybody who tried to use it. And so GM has kind of backed away from that. But instead, GM is just effectively reducing the price of all of its vehicles. I believe it's knocked $6,000 off most of its vehicles in cash on hood deals, basically. And that is through until the end of this month. But it highlights the point that there's been so much investment in EVs. At this point, it makes no sense for automakers to turn their back on them. And the companies that are turning their back on them are the companies that have spent the least amount of money on them. So think Stellantis. It has spent, I think, the least of any of the major automakers on EVs. And so it's the first one to kick them to the curb. Nissan is a special case because Nissan is struggling a little bit financially right now. We know that it's stopping sales of the Aria in the US, and we know it's also going to be dramatically reducing its Leaf production here. Other markets have already started to see sales of the Leaf, and most people seem to be happy about the new Leaf, which is a good thing. But then if you come back here and you talk the companies that are continuing to promise EVs, GM, Ford are among them. Those are the companies that have invested a fair amount of their future money into making EVs. And for them to turn around right now and say, we're not going to make EVs anymore, that would be a really big hit on their balance sheets. And while they have cooled in certain areas and not in others, I think this is what we're going to see moving forwards. Now, it's worth noting here that when it comes to investment, I actually spoke with someone last night from General Motors, and I was saying, you know, GM, it's great you're bringing the Bolt back in as a limited production vehicle. I'd rather you did that than not bring it back. But I'd rather you actually committed to making this at volume, and I'd rather that you talk to the executive team and make sure that the messaging that you are sending is actually in line with itself, because you know, GM has been fighting California's clean air regulations. GM has not necessarily been making the right noises when it comes to an all-electric future. It's been investing heavily in V8 engines again, and that looks bad. So, your move. I've got one more story for you, but first I do want to talk to you about a very important sponsor for the channel, and that's you. I'm going to do this one unscripted because I don't have my script here. I do have my notes here, but one of the reasons we exist is because we want to give people the information they need to make a smart decision about their next vehicle. We believe that information should be free, and we should be able to get that information, whoever we are, however much money we make, so that we can then make an informed choice for our future. And we believe in transparency, and we believe in trying to be as fair as possible. And yes, there are some companies we don't cover for ethical reasons, and we are very clear about that, because we believe that as consumers, we all have a part to play in making sure that the world is a cleaner, greener, safer, smarter, and more equitable place for everyone. And we couldn't do that without you. When Transport Evolved started 15 years ago, it was part of a company that my wife and I owned in the UK. But in 2015, when we moved to the US, Transport Evolved struck out on its own, and it had to stand on its own 2 feet. And that's when we launched our Patreon campaign. And Patreon is a great way to support the channel. It allows us to continue to meet our monthly bills, and there are many running a channel. So we have to cover our insurance, both for our vehicles, but also our liability and also our equipment. We have to cover payroll. Yes, there are only 3 full-time members of staff and 1 part-time member of staff. And one of those full-time members of staff is me, and I don't pay myself. But we have to cover payroll for everyone else. We have to cover their health benefits. We have to offer retirement funds. We don't have to, but we like to, because everyone deserves a livable wage. And without your support, we couldn't do any of that. When we moved to the US and we started making content over here in 2015, YouTube was our primary source of income. Ad revenue from Google AdWords kept us going, also from adverts that people placed in our videos. And then Google paid us ad revenue for those clicks. But as I'm sure many of you are aware, and I've read some very interesting articles this week along these lines, well, YouTube is one of the many tech companies bowing down to the current US administration. It has made things a lot harder for a lot of diverse voices. And as the wonderful Fran Lab talked about this week on her channel, go check it out if you haven't. If you are from certain communities, YouTube is now quietly not sharing your videos, not recommending them, and not supporting you as content creators. And the amount of money that you're getting in from ad revenue has dwindled. As I said in the live stream earlier this week, when we first started doing in our peak, when we had Google AdWords and Google ad revenue, we were bringing in enough money every month to basically cover everyone's salary. Now we are at about 10% of that, and this next month it could be under anything that we've seen, in fact, in the last 8 years. And that's where Patreon comes in. Through the month of September and October, if you sign up at patreon.com/transport evolved, you will get a chance to get a free piece of digital art that the wonderful Erin has designed. It features the entire team, and it's an autumn design. And then if you live in the Southern Hemisphere, we've also done a spring design because we want to be as inclusive as possible. Go to patreon.com/transport evolved. Go and find Mike Pence, and we will, sorry, there was a fly. Told her to go and find Mike Pence. We will be able to continue to do content like this, make road trips, and bring you the content we hopefully make that you want to watch. So please consider supporting us, and if you do, thank you very much. All right, let's go to our final story, because it's one that I am very passionate about, and that is this. I don't like fake engine noises. I never have. If you're gonna make an EV, you're gonna make an EV with a proper sound in it. And a proper sound for me is the sound of the motor. When I got into EVs, 2005, 2006, 2007, around that time, all of the EVs made what I would call authentic EV sounds. You put your foot down and the motor whined, and it was a glorious, wonderful sound. And in the last sort of 10 years, automakers have increasingly put faux engine noises into their EVs. I'm sorry I'm laughing. Vi is behind the camera, and that fly that was trying to Mike Pence me is now bothering Vi. And Vi nearly dropped their glasses trying to swat the fly. Anyway, these days, artificial noises are kind of the norm on many EVs, especially the performance ones. And it's got that kind of horrible fake feeling to it. You know, even systems like the Dodge Fresonic exhaust system that's supposed to sound like a real exhaust doesn't. The high performance noises that you can get in the Ioniq 5N and the Ioniq 6N, I don't like them. And every time an automaker tries to make an EV sound and feel like a gas car, they do a terrible job. I like driving gas cars. I like driving manual transmissions. I don't anymore. I haven't for years. But when I get a chance to drive a manual transmission gas car, I want it to sound like a manual transmission gas car. When I drive an EV, I want it to sound like an EV. And it turns out, according to reporting from numerous outlets, including Electrek, that Ferrari agrees. Now, I never thought that I was gonna stand in front of a camera, whether in the studio or on location, and say Ferrari agrees with me, but it does. According to Ferrari, its very first EV will get an authentic motor sound. I'm not sure what that means, but it will get an authentic motor sound instead of a fake engine noise. And I think that's going to be good. Now, we don't know very much about what that's going to be, but imagine a motor sound maybe amplified for the cabin, or maybe engineering a motor that has a particular whine to it that maybe gets acoustically amplified by some careful design in the underfloor area, or something else. But I think, good job on Ferrari. Yes, you've dragged your feet on EVs for years, but if your first EV actually sounds like an EV and gets people getting out of that EV with a big grin on their face because it's fast, it's quick, it's exhilarating, and it sounds like a rocket ship, because that's what an EV motor sounds like, I'm all for it. And there we have it. That's pretty much it for today's show. I'm going to do the closeout unscripted as well, but hey, first of all, thanks to the Electric Vehicle Association for sponsoring today's show. They have been advocating for EVs since 1967, and they believe, just like we do, that everyone deserves access to clean, green, affordable, renewable transportation and energy. You can join the EVA today by going to myeva.org. Doing so opens up a whole new range of opportunities for you, including new meetups. You can meet like-minded EV fans. You can become an EV educator or an advocate. You can even get financial help through a great new program that allows you to finance your next EV or green energy transition with low payments. So go to myeva.org to find out more. You can also go and say hi to our friends at Energy Sage. Follow the link on in the description to go to Energy Sage if you want to transition to your own homegrown solar, or perhaps to join a community solar program. Time is running out. Go there now and plan the next stage of your energy independence. And of course, thanks to you all at home. We would be very, very grateful if just a couple of hundred of the 152,000-ish people who watch this channel support us with the equivalent of a fancy coffee every month. We wouldn't have to do this PBS style. Please support us every month. I will tell you, YouTube is becoming an unsafe place for diverse voice creators, and that's what we are. And so without Patreon, without your support and patronage, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And while GM did cover our hotels for this trip, we've had to pay for charging on the road trip. $16.42 was the cost of this particular stop. And we've probably spent about $180 so far on this trip. It's probably going to be about $250 all in before we get back to Portland. Also, very importantly, if you're watching this and you've had a tough week, you are part of a community that is targeted and demonized for just existing. You're not alone. You are important, you are valid, and you are loved. And I want to reiterate that it is okay to not be okay. It's okay to be scared, to be petrified, to just want to curl up in a ball, to turn off, to go and find something else to do. It's okay to do that, because in doing that and taking self-care and looking after yourself, you can come back stronger and healthier to fight for change, to fight for equality, and to make the world a better place for everyone. I met some wonderful people at the Bolt EV launch event yesterday, and we were talking about why I do this, why TE exists. And the reason TE exists is, as I said at the very beginning, because we want to give everybody information they need to make their lives better. I am not looking for fame. I am not looking for fortune. I just want to see more people empowered to make good decisions. And by supporting the channel, you ensure that we can continue to do that. So wherever you are, whoever you love, you're not alone. Be kind, be safe, be an ally, be that positive change that you want to see in the world. And please, for the sake of everyone's future, don't let the hate and the ignorance win. Don't let the threats by authoritarians rule your world and your nightmares. Until next time, be safe, and as always, keep evolving.